Welcome to the Lipoedema podcast, hosted by Shell and Tiana. Our aim is to make noise around lipedema and educate as many people as we can about this disease.
Our guest list contains professionals who work in the field and women who live with lipedema. Thank you for joining us.
Sarah Jane Fish is 29 years old, originally from the Gold Coast, and was diagnosed with stage 2 lipedema in early 2020. She knew surgery was what she wanted to do, but through years of researching, multiple consultations, surgery dates, and chatting and connecting with women on Instagram, she decided to undergo lipedema surgery with Dr. Bago from Lipomedical in Madrid, Spain. Welcome back to the Lipedema podcast. We are your hosts, Shell
and Tiana, and today we are joined by our special guest, Sarah. Sarah, welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Hello. Thank you for having me. Super excited to be here today.
Yes, so are we. We have yet to have a guest on who has had a recent surgical journey. So I'm really excited to chat to you and hear more about that. But before we go through that journey, lucky first. Let's step back a little bit. I'm curious to know how you came to know and to learn of lipedema and when that was.
Yeah, so I was diagnosed in 2020. My journey actually started in 2029. I was doing a fitness competition through Bodies by Rachel, which is now Move With Us. And I actually won that fitness competition, and they posted my before and afters on their website. And I got a bunch of comments, congratulations. But then there was two ladies that weren't, I don't think they knew each other, but they had posted that you could have this disease. They actually just posted, hey, congratulations. I think you might have this disease. You should check it out. So at first I was a little taken back because that's, a lot. I've just worked really hard to completely transform my body. And yeah, I got these comments. So at first the initial shock wore off, and then I started doing research. And I was like, hang on, I have the bruising. I have the heaviness, I have the pain of, growing pains in my legs. So I actually might have this disease. So after traveling that was about April 2019, after traveling the rest of the year and working overseas and, living my best life, I ended up getting diagnosed in 2020, early 2020, and I was stage 2. And yeah, so that was kind of how I came to know about lipedema and how I was diagnosed. And it was like, for me, I feel like initially I wasn't searching a lot because the way that my lipedema developed was predominantly in my upper thighs. So I didn't have the cuffing in my calf muscles and my lower legs like a lot of women do. So just growing up, I did take it just as, that's just how my body is. I'm a chunky girl, I'm a curvy girl, that's just me. And, that's how I took it. So initially, I wasn't really looking. I did start develop this lipedema when I was going through puberty. So it did start then, and you can see photos. But yeah, when I was in my early 20s, I was, traveling, and my diet and stuff wasn't great as we go through all those stages with our bodies and not, trying to lose weight. So, I was quite small, and it did kind of not progress as much, but then I was diagnosed. And then after that, obviously, just getting more aware of the disease and everything. So my journey kind of started in terms of my awareness of lipedema in 2020.
Gotcha. That's so, it must have been really confronting to get those messages on your body transformation photos.
Yeah.
As much as it benefited you, I can imagine that initially getting that would have been like, oh, like you not insulting. That's such a strong word, but confronting.
I mean, it was, and I was how old was I? I was 21. No, I was older than that. How many years are we at now? 29 now. So I try to count back. No, I was 25, I think. Yeah, so initially, I was quite taken aback, and I even said to my now fiance, I was like, is this like, should I be offended by these comments? Like, I've had so many body issues my whole life, and I've worked really hard, and I see where they're coming from, but I was like, gosh, that hurts. But then, I'm so thankful for it now. Like, it was literally a day, maybe two, of like, oh, this sucks. But then once I did the research, I was like, hang on, these women have really helped me to gain an understanding of why I am like I am, and why my body looks the way it does, and why I feel the way I do. And that, you know what, if I did the exercises, if I ate so healthy, I would look like a supermodel. How determined and how much I committed to looking a certain way, or like being healthier and losing that extra weight that I was carrying. If I didn't have this disease, who knows what I would look like with how hard I worked. But it was so nice to finally kind of be like, okay, it's not your fault. It's not something that you did, It was actually really liberating in the end. Just initially it was hard, of course.
Yeah, of course. Liberating and validating. But yeah, I guess
Yeah,
it's the
100%.
message to us in our community to take that courageous step, and with love, maybe mention it to the people that we might see good
100%.
in, as hard as it is for them and for us to.
Yeah, and I've even admitted, like, I've seen women, and I, also am nervous to speak out and suggest these things, because I knew I personally felt the impact. But just stepping out and getting over that initial hurdle, and of course, like you said, in a loving and caring way, in a supportive way, because it is such a big weight off your shoulders eventually if you do get that diagnosis. You ladies would understand, like, just being like, okay, it's not me.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so you were around 25 when that occurred. Now that you have all this knowledge about lipedema, looking back, were there really specific moments of progression for you throughout your life? Like, looking back, do you notice it when you look back on your puberty or in other parts? I know that you said after your diagnosis you started to progress, but were there any indications looking back?
Um, a big one, I saw a big one, especially when around like contraception and the pill. Um, it was hard for me because I had a lot going on. So when I was diagnosed, I was at the fittest and strongest I'd ever been. And I was eating, gluten, dairy, like I had no restrictions. The only restrictions, I was eating about 1,500 calories a day. Like, it was really balanced, protein, carbohydrate, fat diet. Like, it was like when I did those challenges, I was doing it properly. It wasn't starving myself. I was just, I was in a slight calorie deficit, but not enough for my body not to function. But then I had 6 months where my partner and we went traveling, and we it was just the start of COVID. So, I went to a wedding overseas, and we weren't, exercising, we weren't eating healthy. And then I started to really see a progression. And I think that's also, I was coming up about 10 years being on the pill as well. And I think my test results, actually, I had blood results just before I left Australia, because he's from the States. And my thyroid was actually not working properly. And this was crazy to me because I was the fittest and healthiest I'd ever been. And so this 6 months where I traveled and then we got stuck in the States due to COVID, I really saw a progression in my lipedema. So I decided then to go gluten-free, dairy-free, which really helped me. And I went off the pill as well. And I felt that actually helped, like the progression stopped a little bit. And all my thyroid levels came back to normal, which was crazy because it shows that, any little bit of inflammation really does affect like all of our body. And like, that's what we're living with. Like, this disease is just inflammation. So it's just pretty much around that period. And then, in the last couple of years, I did see progression in my arms, and I put that more down to stressful periods. At the moment, I'm studying full time as a paramedic at the moment, and working 2 jobs, and also, planning surgeries and that sort of stuff. So it's been a hectic couple of years for me, but I feel like when those, more stressful times in my life is when it has progressed. And I did feel there was a little bit more progression post-surgery, my first surgery as well, especially my upper arms and a bit in my lowers as well.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense when you talk about how some stressful times has brought on some progression, and then going through surgery is incredibly stressful on your body. So that sounds like that would make sense for it to progress in other areas, and certainly heard it from other women post-surgery as well. Okay, so you mentioned that you and your partner love to travel, or that you love to travel even before then. And I guess that might answer why one of the reasons why you were very comfortable going overseas for your surgery. But we are very interested in finding out more about your experience with your surgery. And I'm going to hand you over to Shelley soon, but I'm going to kick it off first.
Yeah, perfect.
So, what made you travel overseas to get your surgery?
Probably the most asked question I get. So there's a multitude of reasons. I have had many surgeries booked with many different surgeons. For me, it just came down to vibes. Well, not the only reason, but one of the biggest reasons is the vibe. Like, your surgeon, you have to trust him wholeheartedly. You have to feel that he is that person that not only can do the job and get the results that you want, but that you trust him and that he respects you and that he understands you and listens to you. So, for me at the time, all the consults I did, and I did a lot of consults. I did a consult in Australia and I did a few overseas as well. So I did a worldwide tour pretty much of lipedema surgeons. But then I settled with Dr. Burgos, who's in Madrid, Spain, and he's a specialist. He's a general surgeon and specializes in lipedema because it works a bit different over in Europe, like the whole system and everything. But yeah, when I had my first consult with him, like, he just put me at ease. Even through Zoom, I just felt a really great connection with him and that he just cared. And it's so special to find someone not only, in a different country, but who, English is his second language, and just the way he spoke, like, I could tell he cared so much. So for me, like, as soon as I, had that first Zoom, I was like, I am done. Didn't help that he was across the world. I think from Brisbane to Madrid is one of the furthest places you can travel. So I didn't do great picking that situation. But yeah, I had traveled and lived overseas a lot, so I wasn't that intimidated with the travel. And also, like, the language barrier. I talked to a lot of ladies, and their whole team at Lipoedema, they actually all speak English, and Google Translate is fantastic. And there really wasn't a lot of issues that I was seeing with the language situation. The other big factor, besides the vibes, was the price, which of course everyone, like, it's going to be tens of thousands of more because you're traveling to a different country. For me, I actually found it very comparable. It was actually pretty much the same. So it was more or less about $15,000, and which is crazy. Like, you can go down the road and get the same procedure done by another great surgeon, or travel across the world and pays for your flights, your MLDs, post-surgery, all your consults, your surgery, your 24-hour stay in hospital, all your medications, food, spending money for the same amount. So for me, money didn't really come into it. So I'd also saved the money, but the fact that it was pretty much the same, regardless which way I went, my priority was the surgeon that was right for me. So that's pretty much the reasons. The two main factors that came into it.
It's such a good way to look at it too, Sarah, because you're not just going, oh, it's all about the money. Like, I love that you sought out a surgeon that you were comfortable with, that you vibed with, and because you are putting your life in their hands. So So I love that you weren't afraid to reach out to the community. So you reached out, is there like Facebook or something? Like, how did you find these women to talk to? How did you find the surgeon?
Yeah, so pretty much Instagram. I have done a lot of my research and everything based on Instagram, which is crazy. But yeah, I found another girl from New Zealand who was actually going to him. And yeah, we just touched base. We started chatting, and then through her, I started looking at Dr. Burgos's Instagram, the results as well. I think that was a big contributing factor also to my decision, because he has been in the industry for years, and I feel Europe has a stronger handle, I think, on lipedema. You know, they've done a lot more research, and when I was doing all this research, I felt that they were a bit more, I guess, not clued on, but they had a bit more handle on the disease and how it operated and how it reacted, and so that's why, like, I think I was also happy about traveling because of that aspect. Obviously now, as you know, this is 3 years down the track, things are changing, research is happening, which is fantastic. But yeah, so through Instagram, I reached out, I emailed them. It was super easy. They got back to me quite quickly, actually, within a couple of days, and despite the time difference. And yeah, set up a consult. And I think it was actually too long the wait time. I think it was like maybe a month max. Which it's obviously a lot longer now, just due to the just everyone's now is on Instagram, and everyone's so much more accessible, and yeah, so, and then yeah, we kind of just did a consult. Because I already had a diagnosis, it was a lot quicker. Dr. Burgos can diagnose you via Zoom, initial consult diagnosis, so that's a great opportunity for many ladies as well if they are looking for a diagnosis. But yeah, through emailing, and yeah, it was super easy, surprisingly. And any question, any time of the day, like, the team was right there and was so helpful. And yeah, so it was quite easy, actually.
Oh, isn't the internet a marvelous thing? It's just opened up the whole world. I love it.
Yeah.
I love it.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah. And so how did you, like, so he coordinated everything pre-op, post-op, like he coordinated all of that with you?
100%. So a lot of ladies have also asked me about, did he help you with accommodation? That's one thing that they're like, okay, this is your surgery, like, this is you've got your date, and then pretty much the rest is up to you in terms of your accommodation, which is actually super easy. You just find a place that's near your MLD place, and it gives you all the recommendations for all of the specialty MLD places that he suggests. You can go to somewhere else, but he has a lot of companies that he works well with, and honestly, they're just incredible. And then he just gives you a bunch of recommendations, and then you kind of pick from there. So yeah, so he contacts you a couple of days before the surgery, gives you all the pre-op information, like no eating, your times, when you arrive, how you get there, all the information you could possibly know. And then he also organizes your post-op consult as well. Afterwards, you go and to get your sutures out and everything. But yeah, anything relating to the surgery, if you have any complications, he's right there. The whole team's there. One of my good friends, who I actually met through Instagram, she had surgery with him earlier and had some complications, and she was saying the best part of the experience was that Dr. Burgos was in there like every day, like multiple times, like checking, making sure she was okay and everything. So everything is organized in terms of surgery. Like, you don't have to worry about anything. You just turn up, take your clothes off, put your gown on, and walk straight in. And it's just, yeah, it's quite seamless. And like, it, you know, booking the accommodation and everything else, it's just like going on holiday. So it's really like, it can be overwhelming, but if you just, you know, kind of switch your mindset, you know, I'm just going to visit Spain, you know, I'm just going to visit Madrid, and you know, I contacted every MLD place for prices, and they were really forthcoming, and you know, they were like, pick who you want, like, and it was super, like, everyone just so lovely. And it was quite an easy process, surprisingly.
Oh, that is so good. And so you said just treat it like a holiday. Like, so when we go on holidays, we get travel insurance. How does
Yes.
that work with when you're going for surgery?
So I was very lucky. So for me, for travel insurance prior, because we knew obviously we're traveling to one of the furthest places, so it's going to be expensive flight wise. So we actually got a Qantas credit card, and we used points obviously to travel for my second surgery. And I think it was either that one or another card that we had actually had insurance with it. So the fact that we already had this card and it actually came with, and we double checked like medical insurance. I'm going on for a procedure, blah blah blah. Will it cover? And they said yes. So I was quite lucky. So I didn't actually have to pay for any extra insurance. But obviously it is recommended because with any surgery there is complications. But another factor that I forgot to mention that also made me pick Dr. Burgos was the fact that his surgeries are done in a hospital. So if there is any complications, if there are any issues that that you're worried about or you're anxious about, they have everything there. They have the facilities, they have the doctors, they have anything. So if anything goes wrong, you're in a hospital essentially, which for me, that put me at ease. I've worked in healthcare and stuff. So for me, my brain, that just calmed me a little bit more. But yeah, so that definitely, for me, I was very lucky with the insurance, but I know it's obviously such an important factor. So you have to factor that in. But the credit card for us was really lucky that he covered it. Luckily, I didn't have to use it though. So
yeah, absolutely. It's there just as a safeguard, isn't it? So that's good that
yeah.
that you had that. And so you mentioned, so how many surgeries have you had in Madrid?
So I've had two. My first one, like I said, my majority of my lipedema had developed in my upper thighs and around my lower back. Like I would get lots of lower back pain and achiness in the tops of my legs, and I do feel it a little bit in my lowers, but not as much. I still have quite good definition in my calf muscles. But yeah, so my first surgery was on the front of my thighs, and 6.8 liters of diseased tissue was removed, which for me, 80-kilo woman, like that's quite a lot. My second surgery, they did the backs of my thighs and my lower back, which for me was like the big one. I've always had large hips, childbearing hips. But having lipedema tissue on top of that really defines them. And I also got, probably in the last 6 months, quite bad back pain, lower back pain, especially when training and stuff like that. So they took 5.1 liters, and Dr. Burgos did say that a lot of the fibrous tissue was in my lower back, and you could tell. I haven't put up pictures of my bruising yet, but it looked like someone had just gone to town on my back. And my MLD therapist, she's like, wow, I've never seen Dr. Burgos put a suture incision here before. Like it was that bad. He had to cut extra incisions, which is a good thing because they won't stretch the skin as much if they do more incisions. But I ended up with 22 incisions after my last surgery. So it was hectic, but amazing results. Like I still can't believe they're my legs. Like I've never had thighs this small before. Like it's insane.
Oh, you wouldn't recognize yourself looking down, would you? It's crazy.
It's crazy. I'd never seen my calves. I'd never seen my quads before. I'd never seen my hammies. I just cried when I first saw them. It's just an out of body experience, It's
you get so used to seeing yourself in the mirror, and then when that's changed, it's like, oh wow.
Yeah.
This is me.
Yeah. And it's like I'm still on that mental journey, For me, I really felt, that time during COVID where I was doing my research after my diagnosis, the time between diagnosis and my first surgery, having that time to really sit in my diagnosis and try and figure out my emotions around it and falling in love with my body again and going through that mental journey, I think for me was really important. I think if I rushed into surgery too quickly, I think I wouldn't have been able to do as much work on myself as I was able to. And even, the time difference between my first surgery and second, I have had a lot going on in the last 8 months. So I probably wouldn't have had the mental capacity for a surgery, 10 weeks after my first. But just to be able to see those changes, recognize my body, and just allow my body to go through that healing process, I think for me was really beneficial as well. So like, I know women like want to get out there and have their surgeries, boom, 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 and I understand that, but sometimes it is better to sit in it and just allow your body to heal and allow yourself to recognize and fall in love with your body as well, and just not enjoy it, but allow your body just to recognize this new person and feel who you are. And, because you can, with this disease too, you can use conservative measures. And I, was using them for quite a long period of time, and I still am, that's never going to change. This disease, unfortunately, it's a chronic illness that we'll have for the rest of our lives. But, it's like the surgeries are just a reset. Like we could never go, oh, we just don't have it anymore, unfortunately. But, having this reset is definitely, it's amazing. And it's allowing me to do everything that I, love to do.
Yeah, that is awesome. And I think that's a big thing that we see a lot of the times. People are like, I'll have the surgery and then I'm lipedema free. And it's like, well, actually, no, because we don't know the cause. So we can't cure something we don't know the cause of. We can get rid of the disease fat and reset. Like you said, I love that wording, the reset, but you are never free of it. So you've just mentioned conservative management. What conservative management techniques do you use?
So for the last, I guess, 3 years, I've been living in my lovely type 2 compressions, compression garments. So yeah, the very thick ones, the flat knits, which honestly, I am so used to. Australian summers, like since my first surgery, I've been wearing double compressions. I've been wearing flat knits and I've been wearing circular knits on top of it because I haven't wanted to fork out the $800 for another pair of flat knits. So, so I'm honestly, the heat doesn't really bother me anymore, which is great. But yeah, so that's my predominant use of conservative measures. I also like MLD. I am trying to get it about once a month. As you know, it's quite expensive. And for me, I don't have private healthcare. So it all comes out of pocket, which is fine. Like I've saved money. Like it's, I think it goes both ways. You save the money or you pay it into a private fund. But yeah, so between a month, every 2 months, obviously the last month has been a lot more regular because I've just had surgery. And I do have a vibration plate, but I haven't used it since my first surgery. And I would probably only use that maybe once a week. And just like big focus on exercise and just moving my body. I've got 2 little dash hounds, and just even going for a walk in the afternoons with them, and just trying to stick to a healthy routine with my diet as well. I have to admit, we spent a little bit of extra time over in the US afterwards with my partner's family, and I ate gluten and dairy, and I felt it after doing a long time without it. But you know what? It's life. You've just got to live it. And but yeah, getting back to that healthier lifestyle, I guess, and exercising. Swimming has really helped as well for me, especially post-op. At first, it doesn't feel like your skin during the surgery, your skin is actually like removed from like the underlayers of your muscle and stuff. So like that feeling that your skin's not attached is really weird at first, but it definitely helped with my healing and getting rid of any extra fluid. But yeah, I would probably say the major ones are my compression garments and my diet and exercise, just being consistent, really. But yeah, those kind of the main ones.
Yeah, just a joyful movement and nutritious eating. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think not being too rigid on anything, because like you said, it is life. It is our life. We can't, live this restricted life. A lot of us come from backgrounds of like disordered eating and yo-yo dieting before 100%. We got our diagnosis. So, and that's
and I've done both ways. Yeah, like I've like underate and I've binge ate and I've been through all of that, and like I'm still trying to, develop a good relationship with food, because I do catch myself sometimes, like, you go through 27 years of, struggles and with this specific part of your life, and it's hard to change. But I think the main thing is just like one little step at a time. Don't expect it's all going to change at once, because it's not. And that's when you generally, fall off the wagon, or, and just don't be too hard on yourself, I think, is the biggest thing. And like, with the whole diets and everything, I tried keto and I felt amazing on keto, but you know what? That stuff's not as sustainable for me anyway. It wasn't. Like, I felt quite restricted, and in the end, like, I didn't stick to it, even though like I did feel great on it. So it's kind of, it's always going to be a mental battle, I think, between the way you feel and, the way you think, and it's just trying to find that balance and that, lifestyle that works for you, really.
Yeah, something that's sustainable that you can do consistently. And I just want to say,
100%.
like, you are 20 years ahead of me, and I want to clap because, yeah, look, I love younger women who are getting diagnosed. It really,
Yeah.
I just think myself, if I was diagnosed 20 years earlier, what things I could have had in place instead of trying to play catch up now.
Oh, 100%. Like, I just, sorry to interrupt. I just had like one of ladies that her husband actually taught me in high school, and her daughter at 16 was just diagnosed, and she reached out and she's like, I would love to come and have coffee and have a chat like with her daughter and about your experiences and everything. And it just warms my heart that these girls are not stuck being like, why am I in pain? Why am I struggling? Why am I being bullied? Like, I was there because I was bigger, and I wasn't massive, but I was bigger than, my other friends. And, I was quite badly bullied, end of primary school and into high school. And, just to know that girls are finally getting answers and they are taking this massive leap, because it is hard to find out, and especially because there's no cure. So I have so much respect, and I'm so happy that these girls are getting answers younger, just to help curb some of those behaviors, later in life, or just, kind of be able to process what's going on, if they are dealing with bullying or other things, or eating struggles, like, it's nice that there's more awareness, essentially. And I love that you guys have created this podcast. And for Australians, like you said, like, we didn't have a platform in Australia. We didn't have anywhere that we could turn to and, that spoke our lingos and, got what we feel. And like, it is a struggle here in Australia. There isn't a lot of options, so it's amazing that you guys are putting this awareness out. And, we do have other options, and we, it's amazing. So thank you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Well, we wouldn't have this podcast if it wasn't for the amazing community that we've found. So, it goes both ways. So before I ask our final question, and we are running out of time, do you have any more surgery planned, or are you?
So I actually did have a surgery booked for February next year, just with like uni dates and stuff. But Dr. Burgos assessed my arms, and he said that he doesn't think that I'm progressed enough to warrant traveling across the world and getting surgery. At the moment, it kind of like goes to here. I don't have like the cuffing here as yet. You can see the difference between, because there is quite a little jump, I guess. But yeah, so he said if he did do the surgery, he would take about maybe a liter or so. So, he's like, try conservative measures, and then see how far you get. He's like, if you really want to, we can of course go ahead with the surgery. But that was kind of the way he was leading towards. He did say, because at the moment my lower legs do look a little bit bigger than my my uppers, but I don't have a lot. The same goes with my arms. It's not progressed enough. And if he did remove the lipedema tissue that was there, I would still have big lower legs, because I was blessed with giant calf muscles from my grandfather. So I will always be a little bit disproportionate. Definitely thank my grandfather for that one. But so for now, we're just going to put that money for that surgery aside in like a fund, and maybe after I've had kids and might look at having another surgery depending on how my progression has gone. Hopefully I don't need it, because that would be lovely to have a little extra $15,000, for a house deposit. But yeah, so we'll see. It's undetermined for now. Dr. Bogus was great. He's like, you can have your deposit back and everything. So yeah, it's kind of just a waiting game, and we'll see how I go. But at the moment, no more are planned.
Oh, that is so refreshing. A surgeon not saying,
Yeah.
fly over, give me your money. Oh,
Yeah.
that is amazing. Well,
Yeah.
Sarah, thank you so much for joining us. It has been great speaking to you and getting all the information about
Yeah.
overseas surgery. So thank you so much. We are out of time.
Thank you for having me. I'm sorry I waffled on. I love a good chat.
Nah, so do we. That's why we're here.
Thank you, Sarah.
Any other questions, don't hesitate. Even just like message, like any other ones that your listeners are dying to know and didn't get answered, just message me. I'm happy to answer.
Thank you so much, Sarah.
Thank you for listening to the Lipoedema podcast. Lipoedema and its symptoms vary from individual to individual. The opinions and advice voiced on this podcast are of a personal nature and used for educational purposes.
Please take away from this podcast what resonates with you, and please see your GP or preferred specialist for diagnosis and healthcare. We are Shelley and Tiana from the Lipoedema podcast. Until our next episode, bye for now.